How are you feeling today? The warm yellow light spills across the dark wooden table. Glasses clink softly. Laughter overlaps smooth and round like a glaze over the evening. The Kelly family gathers. Everyone talks about harmless things. The weather, a trip to the beach, and the Netflix show everyone is halfway through. The conversation flows easily like a familiar melody. Everyone knows when to laugh, when to nod, and when to fall silent just enough. A social play repeated for years until no one realizes they're still reading from the same script. But Kelly, the youngest, sitting quietly at the corner of the table, can't just hear what's being said. She hears the faint tremor in Tom's voice as he talks about his promotion. A tone stretched thin, like a string pulled too tight. She sees Alex's eyes flicker away when marriage comes up a blink too quick, as if to hide from himself. And she feels the heavy silence from Luke when the topic turns to success and ambition. A silence not born of peace, but of exhaustion turned to ice. Kelly smiles gently, but a ripple of unspoken questions stirs inside her. She has always carried an invisible antenna tuned to the frequencies others miss, the cracks between words, the pauses between smiles. When the talk drifts toward the news, she finally says softly, "Isn't it strange? We're more connected than ever. Yet everyone seems lonelier than ever." No one answers. A polite laugh escapes, and someone quickly changes the subject to an upcoming vacation. The safe topics return, and Kelly's words dissolve into the air as if they were never spoken. She stays silent, smiles, and realizes perhaps the hardest part isn't that no one listens, but no one wants to listen anymore. This is the story of those who think deeply, feel deeply in a world that only wants to float on the surface. Kelly isn't special. She's simply someone who hears more than what is said. She feels deeply, thinks carefully, and keeps wondering why the world seems content with mistaking shallowness for happiness. People often call souls like Kelly complicated, but in truth, she's just honest about the things others avoid. Because in a society that worships comfort, honesty becomes an act of risk. When most people smile to keep the peace, the one who dares to speak truth becomes the one who disturbs it. Kelly once thought something was wrong with her. Why couldn't she pretend? Why couldn't she feel joy over the little things like everyone else? But as she grew older, she began to understand. The price of self-awareness is a deep, persistent loneliness. Carl Jung once said, "The more conscious a person becomes, the more they suffer from the unconsciousness of others." And Kelly didn't learn this from books. She learned it through the quiet ache of her heart. She carries a burden, both sorrowful and beautiful, to see too clearly in a world that prefers to keep its eyes closed. It's not a curse, but a heavy, sacred gift. A lesson in standing firm among the sleeping while keeping her inner light from going out. There's a quiet question that has followed Kelly for years. Why does she always feel like she doesn't belong anywhere? Others see life as a still, glassy lake, but she always notices the undercurrents moving beneath her. She cannot accept things as they are, because within her, a small voice keeps asking, why do people pretend to be fine when they're clearly not? Why must we smile when we feel empty inside? And why does love so often come with conditions? Kelly has been asking such questions since she was a child, but every time she asked, she was met with the same replies. Don't overthink. You're too sensitive. Just be like everyone else. It's easier that way. So she learned to stay silent. The questions didn't disappear. They sank deeper, settling into a quiet kind of loneliness. Loneliness, not a lack of people, but from the lack of a space where she could be real. Nietzsche called such people free spirits, those who dared to break the chains of conformity only to find themselves wandering the desert of awareness. Schopenhauer compared humans to hedgehogs in winter. They huddle close for warmth, but the closer they get, the more their spines wound one another. And Kelly, with a soul too sharp, too tender, always stands on that fragile line, longing for connection, yet fearing to hurt and to be hurt. That is the architecture of distance, built without walls or physical space, but from layers of misunderstanding, pretense, and the quiet fear of being truly seen. Some people walk into a room and see only faces, but others, like Kelly, see the fine, invisible threads of emotion drifting through the air like smoke. Psychologist Elaine Aron calls them highly sensitive persons, HSPs. People whose nervous systems are more finely tuned, who process information more deeply, who don't just see the world with their eyes, but feel it with every nerve cell. About 20% of the population consists of people who are like this. People for whom a single sigh can stir worry, and a brief misplaced glance can keep them awake all night. Their brains work differently. They don't skim through facts, they dig into meaning. They don't just look, they see through. And in a world that worships speed and simplicity, that depth becomes a disadvantage. Society calls them too sensitive, too complicated, because no one realizes it inside. They are running an intricate, endlessly active inner machine. Kelly once wished she could be simpler, to stop analyzing every word, to stop hurting over things others shrug off, but then she understood. What others call weakness is actually the profound instinct to perceive truth. In her work, this isn't easy. Amid cold procedures and unspoken office politics, Kelly struggles between meaning and compliance. She can't bring herself to do something empty just because everyone does it. She needs to feel that what she does has a soul. As Viktor Frankl once wrote, "Man can endure any suffering if he finds meaning in it." But what exhausts Kelly most is living in a society that drains meaning from life, then tells people like her, don't think too much. And so she realizes, the problem was never that she felt too deeply, but the world has simply forgotten how to feel. There are moments when Kelly feels as if she's living on a different frequency. Everyone around her speaks the same language, and yet what they truly hear is something else entirely. They laugh at stories she finds empty. They get excited over things she finds shallow. They move calmly past moments that make her stop and linger. And in those moments, Kelly realizes her sense of isolation doesn't come from thinking too much, but from feeling the layers others don't dare to touch. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious. In the realm where most people live by inherited scripts, repeating beliefs, habits, and biases without ever truly meeting themselves. But Kelly has touched that layer, where everything becomes raw, real, and sometimes painful. It's like the one who accidentally sees through the veil of Maya and Buddhist philosophy, the illusion that hides the true nature of life. Once you've seen through it, you cannot go back. You can no longer laugh just to fit in, nor pretend to believe in what you know isn't real. Plato once told the story of the prisoners in the cave. They saw only the shadows of reality and believed that was all there was. When one of them escaped and saw the true light, he returned to tell the others, but they laughed at him. Kelly knows that feeling. When you speak truth, the world hears you as if you're speaking another language. They call you too sensitive, negative, difficult, because truth always threatens what people try so diligently to keep intact. But as Jung once said, it is not light that saves us, but the courage to face our darkness. Kelly never wanted to be different. She just wanted to be real, in a world too used to pretending it's fine. And slowly she begins to understand. Deep thinkers are not always lonely. They're simply transmitting on a frequency the world hasn't yet learned to tune in. There are days when Kelly only has to walk into a room, and before anyone says a word, she already feels that something is off. The air grows heavier in an unexplainable way, as if emotions no one wants to admit are floating quietly through the space. People still laugh, still talk, and still pretend to be fine, but Kelly hears the low notes beneath the noise, the worry inside the laughter, and the sadness within the silence. Carl Jung once called this phenomenon psychic contagion. The way emotions move from one person to another, not through words, but through unconscious frequencies. Psychiatrist Judith Orloff has another name for it, the emotional sponge. People like Kelly don't just observe the emotions of others, they absorb them until they can no longer tell where others' sadness ends and their own begins. She carries home feelings that don't belong to her. Tom's anxiety, Luke's exhaustion, and Alex's emptiness. They slip into her sleep, turning into heavy dreams she can't quite explain. This sensitivity isn't a choice. It's like living with a radio that can never be turned off, constantly tuning into every emotional frequency in the room. And the price of always receiving is a kind of soul-level fatigue, a weariness no amount of rest can cure. The irony is that people like Kelly, the deep feelers, often become safe havens for others. Everyone comes to them to unburden themselves, drawn to the quiet safety of their presence, to the way they truly listen. But few ever realize that's the one who listens, is slowly drowning in the emotions of everyone else. That is the paradox of the healer, the one who can hold others' pain, yet has no one to hold their own. One day, Kelly realized she had started smiling by reflex, not out of joy, but because it was the safest way to exist among people. Too many times, silence greeted honesty. After too many awkward glances when she went too deep in conversation, Kelly learned that sincerity can make others uncomfortable. So she began to develop a delicate survival skill, the mask of normalcy. She chose gentle words, smiled just enough, spoke of harmless things, and revealed only a tiny fragment of her real soul. Not because she wanted to pretend, but because she understood that depth, when shown to the wrong person, becomes a burden. That sensitivity in the wrong place is seen as a complication. That truth, spoken too soon, can frighten people away. Jean-Paul Sartre once spoke of bad faith, the act of deceiving oneself to escape existential anxiety. But for Kelly, her mask wasn't deception, it was emotional diplomacy, a way to survive in a world full of people who don't want to look in the mirror. Yet every mask carries a cost. To be accepted, she had to hide her deepest parts. And in doing so, she lost the very thing she longed for most, genuine connection. Inside her lived two parallel selves. The social Kelly is kind, gentle, and agreeable, and the silent Kelly is profound, honest, and full of thought. Between them lay a thin wall, so thin that a single look of true understanding could bring her to tears for being seen. But such looks are rare, and sometimes the deepest kind of loneliness is not being alone, but having to pretend just to be with others. Kelly isn't the only one wearing a mask. The whole society is just on a larger, more sophisticated scale. We are living in a post-truth era not because the truth has vanished, but because people have chosen comfort over honesty. They would rather hear what soothes them than what compels them to change. At work, the one who dares to point out what's wrong is labeled difficult. In school, the child who keeps asking why is told they're stubborn. On social media, ideas don't gain approval for being true, but for being short, digestible, and painless. Kelly gradually realizes the world she lives in isn't afraid of pain. It's afraid of thinking about pain. It doesn't truly hate complexity. It just fears confronting it. We've created a culture of depth phobia, where feeling deeply is called overthinking, where speaking honestly is deemed negative, and where those who suffer are told simply to cheer up. Kelly once believed she was too sensitive until she understood. It wasn't sensitivity, it was awakening in the midst of a collective dream. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious, a shared realm of old fears and inherited beliefs that quietly steer human behavior without awareness. And Kelly sees that in such a world, those who dare to look deeper, to question, to doubt, are always the first to be isolated. Not because they are mistaken, but because they disturb the artificial calm. The crowd needs to keep its illusion intact. Society doesn't exile the liar. It exiles the one who speaks the truth too soon. And in her quiet solitude, Kelly finally understands. Perhaps she was never lost. She simply woke up. In a room where everyone else is still asleep. There are days when Kelly feels both hidden and exposed. People see her smiling, talking, listening, but no one truly sees her. Inside, there's a vast and intricate world, rich with thought, emotion, and undercurrents only she can sense. But that inner world shares no common language with the rest of the world. Every time she opens her heart, people respond, "You think too much. Relax, don't take everything so seriously." And so Kelly retreats, bit by bit, until silence becomes her private language, a refuge from eyes that do not understand. One day, she read about kenosis, self-emptying in ancient Greek philosophy. They say that sometimes we must empty ourselves so others can find space within us. Kelly has lived that way for years, softening her energy, lowering her voice, hiding her intensity, just to fit neatly into the frames the world sets for her. But the price of fitting in is the slow erosion of self. She blended so well she forgot what color she used to be. She smiled to keep the peace, but each smile was a small cut into her inner truth. That is the paradox of deep souls. The more they try to be seen, the more invisible they become. The more they long to be understood, the more they must conceal themselves. Kelly slowly learns. Authenticity isn't always welcomed, but if belonging requires her to trade it away, then that isn't belonging, it's self-abandonment. The lesson whispered through her silence. You don't need to make yourself smaller to fit the world, you just need to find a world that has room enough to hold you. There are pains that make no sound, but still burn quietly in the heart like a small flame. Not enough to destroy, but enough to remind you that you've once been touched. Kelly carries such wounds. No one sees the blood. But every time someone says, "You're too sensitive," or "Don't think so much," it cuts another thin line across the surface of her self-worth. She remembers the time she spoke her truth and the room went cold, the time she shared something real and was met with silence, the time she reached out for a hug and touched nothing but the invisible space between herself and the world. And so, little by little, each indifference, each polite nod wove inside her a quiet kind of loneliness. Not loud, not tragic, just the sense of living on a frequency no one else can hear. But then Kelly realized those very wounds had made her sensitive to the pain of others. When someone forced a smile, she could tell. When someone said, "I'm fine," with a trembling voice, she knew what it meant. "I'm holding on." She heard the words between the lines and touched the feelings others were too afraid to name. Carl Jung once called this woman the wounded healer. Those who, after being hurt by the world, return to help it heal. They don't teach through words, but through their presence, a presence that makes others feel safe enough to be honest. Because only those who have walked through darkness know how to hold another's hand in the night without frightening them. Kelly came to understand healing doesn't mean having no wounds. Healing is when the wound no longer controls how you live. It's when you can touch another's pain without being pulled under by it. It's when you can open your heart, yet still keep a quiet space within for your own recovery. She learns to give without depletion, to listen without losing herself, to love without turning into someone else's vessel. This is what Jung called individuation, the integration of both light and shadow within oneself, because no one truly heals until they embrace both sides, the one who was hurt and the one who loves, the one who fell and the one who rose. Kelly no longer tries to appear fine or good. She learns to be honest with her cracks, because only when you face them directly can you see the light streaming through, and in that moment she understands. Pain isn't something to hide, it's a doorway to compassion. Those who have been hurt have two choices: to let pain harden their hearts, or to let it become a soft refuge for other souls. Kelly chooses the latter because she knows it is her wounds that have taught her how to become a safe place for others. There came a period in Kelly's life when she realized loneliness and solitude are not the same. Loneliness is when you stand in the world and no one understands the language of your heart, but solitude is when you step away from the world to listen again to your voice. For many years, Kelly feared being alone. She feared rooms that were too quiet, nights that were too long, and silences that awakened thoughts she hadn't yet named. Because in that emptiness, she had to face herself, all her unhealed parts, all her unanswered questions. But one day, she understood. Silence doesn't come to imprison, it comes to transform. Just as gold is born only after the metal endures fire, the soul becomes transparent. Only after surviving the long nights of isolation. The mystic John of the Cross called this the dark night of the soul, a time when all light seems lost, but in truth, the soul is being refined, so it can recognize the real light. On nights like those, Kelly learned to sit still in the quiet and listen to her own breathing. Not the breath of anxiety, but the rhythm of someone's learning to exist without needing to prove anything. She discovered that when you no longer need to be intriguing, useful, or pleasant for anyone, your mere existence as it is becomes enough. At first, the silence frightened her, but slowly it became her teacher. Within it, she began to discern what feelings were truly hers, and which ones she had unconsciously carried for others. She untangled the thread of emotion woven too tightly into her mind, returning to the world what never was hers, and keeping only the pure essence of what was real. She came to understand solitude is not an escape from people. It's a return to the self we left behind in the crowd. In that stillness, Kelly rediscovered a kind of peace she had once lost. A peace not born from the absence of sorrow, but from the ability to sit beside sorrow without fearing it. Peace is not needing validation, in doing nothing to earn love. And she realized sometimes the isolation we fear most is a gift in disguise. It carries us far from the noise, so we can finally hear the faintest whisper, the voice of the soul. And there, in that quiet place, she learned the most precious truth. When you learn to befriend yourself, even when you're alone, you are never truly lonely. From then on, Kelly no longer feared silence. She understood that loneliness is the dark night guiding us home. And inside that home, in the gentle stillness of solitude, we find the original light of our soul. Solitude, she thought, it is not the absence of others, but the full presence of oneself. After years of believing she was an outsider, Kelly slowly came to understand something. People like her aren't rare. They're just quiet, just like her. Deep souls are rarely loud. They don't rush to share and they don't seek to impress. They simply observe, listen, and wait. Wait for a subtle signal, a moment of resonance that tells them someone else feels the same depth. Kelly began to notice them. In quiet cafes where people read instead of talk, In libraries among the shelves of philosophy, psychology, and classic literature, in small art galleries where someone's gaze lingers a few seconds longer on an abstract painting. She realized those who share the same depth don't need to search for each other. They just recognize. It's in the glance that holds for a heartbeat longer, in the question that lingers after everyone else has nodded, in the comfortable silence between two people. They don't require any performance to gain understanding. Once, Kelly spoke with a stranger in a bookstore. The conversation lasted only a few minutes, but it felt as though she had finally spoken her native tongue. After years of living in a country that didn't understand her language, she didn't have to explain why she saw too much and felt too deeply. The person simply nodded and said, "Me too." It wasn't dramatic, but it was enough for Kelly to understand. She was never alone in her depth. People like her exist everywhere. Hidden behind ordinary smiles, they exist within quiet professions. Inside hearts that have been wounded and are still silently seeking one another. They recognize each other through how they listen. Through their comfort with heavy truths, through the kind of gaze that reaches into another soul without a single word. When two deep souls meet, the world seems to slow down. There is no need to seem intriguing, only to be real. No need to defend, only to be present. And Kelly learned an important lesson. Not everyone needs to understand you. Not everyone is meant to reach your depth. Some come to share a smile, some are to listen for a while, and only a few to dive deep with you. When we stop expecting everyone to get us, we open ourselves to the many kinds of connection that exist. Some to share, some to learn, and some simply to sit in silence together. Kelly learned to cherish every layer of connection because each carries its meaning, and in their own way, each helps us understand ourselves a little better. And deep down, Kelly knows one day kindred souls will recognize one another, like two lonely stars finally meeting their eyes across the same stretch of galaxy. If you feel different, she thought, perhaps you're just listening to a song the world hasn't learned the rhythm of yet. One day, Kelly looked into the mirror and suddenly realized, for all these years, she had been trying to be loved, but had never truly dared to be herself. She once believed that if she could just be softer, less intense, less different, people would feel more comfortable around her. But the price of being comfortable was the loss of her soul's voice. From that moment, Kelly made a decision small on the surface, but in truth, a quiet act of revolution, to live authentically. In a world where people trade sincerity for approval, to live in truth is an act of subtle rebellion. She began to speak less, but each word was real. She started to smile less, yet each smile was genuine. She learned to say no to what didn't resonate and stopped apologizing for being too deep, too emotional, or too real. Carl Jung once said, "Individuation is a dangerous journey, for when you become yourself, you may lose the world, but you will find your soul." And Kelly chose her soul. She came to see that authenticity is not an attitude, it's a commitment, a vow not to betray the truest part of yourself, even if it means being misunderstood, isolated, or rejected. In today's world, where nearly everything is designed to make us doubt ourselves, our looks, our worth, our voice, our feelings, to trust the truth within becomes an act of courage. Kelly looked around and saw a society that consumes insecurity as a product, that sells fear and calls it motivation, that turns happiness into a photo opportunity and authenticity into a luxury few dare to touch. But she knew those who live truthfully never blend in. They shift the crowd. Like a candle in a dark room, truth doesn't shout or sparkle, yet even the smallest flame makes the darkness tremble. To live authentically, then, is not to fight the world, but refuse to let the world make you forget who you are. Kelly learned to stand steady in the wind, to hold her voice amid the noise, and to smile even when no one understood. Because she knew, you don't need to be understood to be real. That was the moment she felt the quiet power of freedom, the kind that doesn't come with permission to speak, but are no longer needing to pretend. To live authentically, Kelly thought, is the leap of the soul, a leap of authenticity where we choose truth, knowing it will strip us bare. And in that bareness, she found a beauty she had never known before. The beauty of someone who no longer needs to be loved for pretending, but is respected for the courage to simply be. No one knows exactly when it began. Perhaps it was during an ordinary conversation when Kelly paused a second longer to truly listen, or when she chose silence instead of joining a hollow exchange. Maybe it was in the genuine gaze. She offered it to someone trying hard to hide their sadness. Each small act, seemingly insignificant, began to create ripples. People who once felt judged for showing emotion suddenly realized they could breathe around her. Conversations that used to hover on the surface began to sink deeper, become more real, because when even one person dares to be authentic, the whole room starts to breathe differently. Kelly's honesty was never loud, but it was contagious. Not the kind that spreads through words, but through energy, a frequency that makes others want to be truer to themselves. And she realized something profound. Truth doesn't need to convince anyone, it only needs to be lived. By living in alignment with her nature, she became a mirror. People around her began to see reflections of their own truth. In the light she carried, the parts they had hidden away were to be accepted. No one said anything out loud, but everyone could feel the shift. Someone started taking deeper breaths. Someone finally said, "I'm tired." Someone else stopped pretending to be fine. And just like that, a new space opened up. A space for honesty, kindness, and empathy. Kelly understood that. She didn't need to change the world. She only needed to live truthfully. And the world around her would begin to shift on its own. Like a stone falling into still water, it never intends to create ripples. But that is its nature. Each sincere action, each word spoken from the heart, each moment she refused to play the role of the one who's okay became another wave reaching farther than she could ever imagine. Somewhere, perhaps, a stranger saw her living in truth and thought, maybe I can too. Somewhere else, a weary heart, tired of pretending, felt comforted. I'm not the only one who feels this way. Kelly didn't need to know the outcome. Because she understood every awakening begins with one person. Who dares to be different? And in this world, every authentic soul is a silent invitation. To those still asleep, wake up, there is still room in this world for truth. Because when you live authentically, you don't just change yourself. You change the heartbeat of the world around you. Maybe, if you're still here, listening all the way to these final moments, you're not just hearing a story, you're recognizing yourself within it. You is the one who has always felt different, the one who's drawn inward in a noisy world because your feelings are too deep, your thoughts are too much, the one who's been told, don't be so sensitive, don't overthink everything. But listen, you were never wrong, you're simply awake in a world that's grown used to sleeping. Maybe you've spent years trying to make yourself smaller, to fit inside other people's comfort. You may have found yourself smiling when your heart was filled with sorrow. You may nod when your soul longs for silence, but perhaps it's time to pause. Take a deep breath and whisper gently to yourself, I don't have to be less to be loved. This world may prefer what is light, quick, and easily forgotten, but you are the deep one, the feeler, the observer. You are the heartbeat of humanity. You are proof that people still know how to love deeply, to think deeply, to live truthfully. If today you feel out of place, know this: somewhere out there are souls tuned to your same quiet frequency. They will find you, not through words, but through eyes that listen, through presences that feel safe enough to be real. And until you meet them, begin by being that person for yourself. The one who doesn't abandon you, whoever doesn't judge you, who stays even when the world turns away. Because you are not broken. You're not too much. You're simply still intact in a world that has forgotten how to feel. Remember, sensitivity is a form of high emotional intelligence. Depth is a gift, and the intensity within you is the primal life energy the world is missing. The path ahead doesn't ask you to be less of yourself. It asks you to live more fully as yourself, with kindness, with grace, and with a heart that knows how to breathe amid the noise. The world needs you. Your honesty, your empathy, your genuine presence is truly appreciated. So stop shrinking. Stop apologizing for seeing too much, feeling too deeply, or loving too purely. Those are not flaws. They are your rarity, and you are what this world has been searching for. Welcome home. Welcome back to yourself. For those who live in the same depth, to the quiet community of awakened souls. And that's the content of this episode. If you feel a sense of resonance with these reflections, don't forget to follow the channel and stay tuned for the upcoming episodes. See you soon. Bye.